This podcast is brought to you by Hills Community Aid and has been funded by Castle Hill RSL. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Good Men Don't podcast. This is a podcast designed for men where we talk about building respectful relationships and talk about domestic violence and abuse in today's society. Now, this is our last episode, the wrap-up, Warren. If you don't know, my name's Levi and my co-host here today is Warren. How are you today?
I'm really great, thanks, Levi. So, the last episode, who would have thought, eh?
Yeah, we got here. How exciting.
So, I guess I thought today we'd talk about some things about the program and start of talking about our expectations for the program and maybe to talk about some of the fears we had leading into the program in terms of what was on our mind at that point in time and what we were a little bit afraid of.
Yeah.
So, I guess, can I just start some of my expectations?
Sure.
And we'll see how they fit with yours. I think the biggest expectation I had, and I've said this a couple of times, I think, is that when I started working on this podcast, I thought I knew a fair amount about the subject.
Yeah.
But the more I delved into it, the more I found I didn't know. So I found that the topic is so broad, is so complex, far more complex than I ever anticipated. So that was the first part. My expectation was it wasn't that way, but as I've gone into it, I've sort of understood that it's so broad and so deep in terms of it's an issue that literally affects everyone one way or another, and I didn't really expect that at the beginning. Yeah. So my expectation was it's going to be fairly simple. We'd do this in a few months. We'd get it over and done with. But the more I've become involved in it, the more complex I've found it to be. And not only that, that complexity has then moved into finding the right sort of guests and finding where they might fit and where they might talk. So I guess that expectation of mine at the beginning was we'd find guests, no trouble at all.
Yeah.
There'd be dozens of them out there.
Yeah.
Guys that, we wanted guys to be able to talk about the subject. And I just had this expectation that, 5 minutes work and I'd have a list of names.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
So I guess that's some of my sort of early expectations.
Yeah.
How about you?
Just before I answer the expectation or the expectation I had, Warren, just for the listeners, Warren said that we, when discussing about getting guests, but Warren did a lot of the heavy lifting when getting all these guests. So he was an amazing co-host. He definitely went above and beyond organising stuff like that. So thank you, Warren, for making all of that happen. Amazing stuff.
Okay,
my expectations were a bit different. I came into this program a lot later than most, and I think when presented this opportunity, I didn't have many expectations, and I was quite nervous about it because podcasting, I have no idea how to podcast, and I also had to think like, am I good enough at speaking to someone? Can I speak for over an hour, and is what I'm saying enjoyable? So I think there was a bit of like I had more pressing issues, but the expectation was I'd be learning a lot, and this is the area where I did want to learn and grow, and hearing stories and talking to people or like-minded people was really important to me. So I think I expected to grow a lot as a person and understand a bit more. What I came out with, yes, I learned a lot, but there's just so much more to learn. And I'm very grateful that people brought, all these different perspectives into my life, because it's given me an opportunity to rethink how I, may have been thinking before. I guess it's given me an opportunity to think differently.
I think one of the other expectations I had was whether this podcast would have an influence on anyone. And I guess I had this, my wife said to me one day, what do you want to achieve? And I said, well, if the podcast reaches one person and one person steps up to the plate to communicate more about domestic violence. One man, we achieved it.
Yeah.
And some people might say that's a low expectation. But I thought, basically, I don't know. I've never done any podcasting, so I don't know. So it's a bit, you don't know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that was an expectation I had. And I think if I sort of think back on that now, I think that probably that expectation has been well and truly blown out of the water, because I know a number of people who I've shared some of the episodes with. They've said, "Oh, wait, we need to get involved."
Yeah.
So, how about fears?
Fears.
Now, when you started this, yes, I saw the nerves, and you probably saw mine too.
Yeah.
And I looked at that first episode just the other day and thought, "Oh, I look very wooden."
Yeah.
But we've sort of relaxed into it. So, but what fears did you have leading into it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely nervous getting into a room talking about such a, I guess, touchy subject where there's a lot going on right now, and it's a very current issue that's going on. So I briefly touched on fears. Was I capable of talking about it, as well as, would I be saying the wrong thing or right thing? So I think in terms of that fear, it slowly, I guess, simmered down, and I realized, well, no, like, it's important. I may not have gotten it right all the time, and I think a lot of guests and also you put me up on some things, but it's talking about it. It's the conversation that's most important. Like, that's what makes a difference, because then I'll be living in my own reality and making those same mistakes, and vice versa, right? Where we come out with a lot of information, and it's only a good thing if you make, if you talk about it and there's an error and like someone does pull you up on it. Like, you shouldn't view that as like, oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible person. It's room to grow. It's happened, and this is where actions may have consequences, but it is a chance to grow, because now you know right from wrong, essentially. Another one was, I was a bit nervous because this subject is a bit closer to home, and I was nervous I wouldn't be able to give an objective point of view, because it's a very real issue that happens all around. And for me, I think it was a big step in learning a bit more about it, and recognizing a bit more about my childhood and like potential tendencies and things like that. So I guess it was just nerve-wracking in that sense. How about yourself, Warren?
I think I had maybe two fears. The first was around, I'm going to involve a lot of people in this project.
Yeah.
And they're going to spend a lot of time. There's people, like all of our guests, have donated their time.
Yeah.
Both before they arrived here for conversations and then being on the podcast. So I was conscious of the fact, the fear I had was, am I wasting their time? Am I wasting your time and everybody else in the studio today? So, because I've never done a podcast, I've got no idea how it might be received. So I had that fear that potentially this may not go well.
Yeah.
So that was a fear. The other fear I had was essentially around, I guess, one of the conversations you and I had before we even made the first one is who was going to be the host.
Yeah.
And I think I said to you, I didn't see myself as being a host.
Yeah.
Because I really believed at that point in time that maybe what we needed was a personality to be the host. But I must admit, I've enjoyed the experience.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I might even become a permanent podcaster in the future. No, but I've enjoyed the experience. But it was a fear at the beginning.
No, definitely.
So-
Very real. Yeah.
So how about learning? So we've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
and there's some essential learnings. One of the main things I've got is that you and I are different.
Slightly. I never noticed it, but I can see how some people might say we're a little different.
But I think that I haven't never stopped to think about how you might view the world today, or people of your generation. I talk to my grandkids, but we don't talk about those sort of things, and maybe I need to more often.
Yeah.
Because I found that your perspective about things today is totally different than mine.
Yeah.
And the thing that I've found is that, like that conversation we had about respect,
Yeah.
things have become normalised over time.
Yeah.
The changes become normalised, and not all change is necessarily good change.
Yeah.
But it's that process of normalisation. So that was I guess a key learning for me.
Yeah.
In terms of, hey, I need to spend more time being considerate
Yeah.
of younger people's viewpoints and what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
does that resonate with you?
Definitely. It's quite similar. For me, I think the first episode with Brian was definitely a shock. I learned a lot in that one podcast because he's already been in this area of work for some time.
Yeah.
I think this is the first vocal thing that I've done that really, puts me in this line of, I guess, not promoting, but I guess solidarity. And talking to someone who has been a part of it was very real. Like, it definitely gave me the gravity of the situation, and I learned a lot from him. And I'm very, very grateful that we were able to get him in because he gave it straight.
Absolutely.
There was no beating around the bush. He says, this is a real problem. This is something that, can't go on any longer. We need to educate. We need to sort stuff out. Men need to be held accountable. And I never really understood it until that moment. But yeah, really talking to him helped. And a lot, I guess that paved the pathway. Another, I guess, key learning I realized is we had a lot of stats in our podcast, but nothing could ever take away Deb's and Sarah's story. I think that was a really difficult conversation. Those two conversations were really difficult. Just hearing about it, empowering those, giving a voice to those survivors is so important when, I guess, trying to better this situation, because yes, the stats are there, but these are real people, real lives. Their worlds must have been crumbling at that time, and it's not something we can just get around to. It's something that needs to be sorted out. And one of the stat that I will say is it's 1 in every 3 minutes there's a domestic violence call, and I think that really, was an eye opener. So yeah, I learned a lot, but I think that the one thing I'll have at the very top is understanding these are real people going through such a traumatic experience.
And I don't think I ever shared this with you, but one of the things, at one stage, I was not going to include a conversation with a survivor.
Yeah.
Because I thought to myself, will men listen to that? You
Yeah.
know? And I thought, well, maybe they won't. And so I was veering away, not doing it.
Yeah.
But then when I sort of sat down and spoke to a couple of people and heard their stories, I realised how powerful they are when they tell their story, and the fact that at the end of the day, you cannot talk about abuse and domestic violence or even respectful relations, the whole gamut of what we talked about, without talking about the impact it has on the survivor or the victim. So I'm really glad that Sarah and Deb came along and told their story.
Definitely.
I think the other part for me, that the key learning for me, was when Robert came along.
Yeah.
So I remember Robert, he came along to talk about respectful relationships.
Yeah.
And he teaches this sort of stuff about, in terms of what are the alternatives to violence. And I thought when he talked about emotional intelligence, for me, that was so powerful because, I think I said at one stage, I was a consultant years ago and I used to do executive coaching. So it's one-on-one coaching with CEOs. And this is 25 years ago, and they used to ask me about emotional intelligence. What was it?
Yeah.
And I used to sort of, let me think about that. And I'd go away and do some research. But I never got the understanding that Robert gave us about what emotional intelligence was. So I think, from that perspective, that's one of my highlights.
Yeah.
The other highlight I'd have is the input from Dr. Navin.
Yeah.
I just found his level of information and his ability to communicate in a simplistic way that we can all understand,
Yeah.
and make a complex subject at the end of the day fairly simple. And I just
Yeah.
found the way he did that was so good.
Yeah.
Other highlights. Let me think of other highlights. I think the mayor was good.
Yes.
When Dr. Michelle Byrne came on.
Yeah.
And she sort of gave us, first of all, a really good understanding of the Hill Shire, which I thought was really important to sort of set the scene. But then she talked about what's happening in the hills in terms of abuse and domestic violence. Yeah. So I think from that perspective, again, I learned a lot. I didn't realise that there are families living in the area that eat baked beans every night, for instance, because they are so cash-strapped.
Yeah.
And how that might impact a family relationship and a respectful relationship, and how that may, I guess, cause arguments and whatever that may sort of stem from financial restrictions or financial inability to provide and put food on the table.
Yeah.
But when I think about all the guests, and like we spoke to Dom, and I was going to say his input, and he was different, wasn't he? Because he was a guy like you and I.
It was nice. I was just about to say I enjoyed talking to Dom. There was one conversation in particular. It was the stat that we did, the survey about raising your voice and shouting at your partner, and he put it so nicely, and how it's a conversation. Yes, you do tend to raise your voice when you are talking and you're passionate about a conversation, but when it's a problem, when you're trying to take over the conversation, that's when it's a problem. And I think that was really interesting because it's a fine line in my head with like, okay, this is okay, this is not. And he put it so nicely. So if anyone listening, please listen to our conversation with Dom. It was very insightful. Mm-hmm. So Dom was really good, and similar. Dr. Michelle, the mayor, it was lovely speaking to her. She's always nice to have a chat with. But that was shocking to me because I always thought the Hills is such a nice, well put together place. You drive past these nice houses. And then she goes and tells us, there's some people who will exterior the house looks amazing, but interior there's nothing in there. It's just, fighting for survival kind of thing. And it's hard because, you can have that same idea about people where everyone, looks like they're surviving and they look like they're doing fine, but it is just having a conversation with your neighbor. And that's one thing we learned where, try and spread the word to make it more noticeable and known. We're going to do a couple of things, and let's just talk to your neighbor. Hey, are you okay? Holding your friends accountable. Accountability was such a big thing in these conversations, and education. I'd said that from the beginning. I believe education is, one of, if not the most important. Dr. Navin also solidified that idea of early intervention. I gave that brief story of me growing up and not being such a nice person into being educated of why it's bad and why this isn't okay. And I think it was so good hearing other people speak about it. And I think, coming back to our fears, I was nervous for things like that. Was I going to get outcasted because I had done this stuff before? Or is it going to be a conversation of being embraced of okay, you were this before. So I was a bully, for those who didn't check that episode out, from kinder to year 3. It was pretty bad. But am I, going to have a conversation with the person? And it was just a conversation. Now, I can't say it's always just going to be a conversation because actions have consequences. And I was ready to deal with those consequences. Maybe Navin changed his mind about me. Oh, this person, I don't like this person because he did X, Y, Z. But it is coming and coming to yourself, coming to your senses and recognizing that, hey, I've said I'm this, I'm doing this. How can I get better, or how can I do things that benefit both me and my partner and my family and my kids? So, we also talked about abuse. It affects the kids so much.
Absolutely.
It was such a big thing. And I think you talked about it a lot more, where it's like, it's not just the person you abuse. It's everyone around. It's your neighbors, it's your family, both immediate family and extended family. It's all of it.
Do you know what stage I was keen to have an episode that actually just talked about bringing in a whole host of people in the community that serve the community, and just to talk to them about the impact it has, like paramedics, the firemen, the police. I just talk to them about what impact does attending a domestic violence incident have on them, and how it affects the community. But maybe later. We didn't do it this time. Look, I think if I sort of reflect back and think about what the objectives we had at the beginning, and I guess it's going to be for others to judge whether we've achieved that or not. But I want to throw out a bit of a challenge to the guys now, because I think this is where the rubber hits the road, guys, because I want to throw a challenge to you in terms of what are you going to do with all this information that we've given you. So I guess let me start with a quote that a friend of mine gave me just recently. And he said, "You can't change the world by minding your own business." And when I heard that, I thought, wow, that's really powerful. That if you really want to change the world, then you need to get involved. You need to understand what's happening next door. And silence is no longer an option. So if you see or hear something about abuse, then you need to do something about it. What you do about it, you need to be careful. And we talked about that, guys. But I think it's really important that you step up to the plate and do something about it. Definitely. I guess there are three things, I think, guys, that you'll be able to do, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah. We can't force it out of anyone.
No, you can't. But hopefully this podcast has given you enough information to join a conversation around respectful relationships, around abuse, and around domestic violence. Now, whether that conversation is in your home or with your mates, down the pub, whatever, at least if you get involved, which is not I don't think it happens now. So, guys, I think please join in the conversation, talk about it. And I think the next part that I'd like to encourage you to do is to, where you see inappropriate behaviour, whichever way it happens, then be prepared to do something about it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go and confront the person who's doing it. You need to think about what it is, and then need to get maybe help in terms of how you go about that. So I guess that's the second thing. Then the last thing is we're looking for volunteers. We want people to help be part of the solution. So if you're at home, you're looking for something to do, you've been inspired maybe by the topic, and you want to do something to help the community, then search it out. Go to our website. You'll find some directions there. There's an organisation called Click Collab, so they're very much heavily involved in pulling resources together in the hills. So we'd like you to sort of volunteer and become involved. So, Levi, I guess that's where I'm coming from. From my perspective, it's been a pleasure working with you and working with the other guys in the studio and bringing this podcast to everyone. And for you guys sitting at home listening, thank you for sort of listening to us and listening to me especially. I appreciate you've joined in the conversation that way, and I just hope and pray that as we go through, the work we've done will result in far less violence against women. So I'm Warren. That's me for this podcast. So I'm going to throw to Levi to just wrap up for the day. Thanks, Levi.
Thank you so much for your time, Warren. That was really well said. Really appreciate your time also. I guess what my takeaway is with all of this, guys, if you have your families, if you have kids, and there might have been some instances where you're not too sure if they are thinking about it or not, just have a chat. Kids are smart. They know what's going on, and I think education is very, very important with our youth. So yeah, it's I would definitely promote having chats with your children, having chats with your partner about situations like this, issues like this, as it might be able to benefit the family in the long run. I guess, yeah, moving forward, this being the last episode, I just want to thank my co-host Warren for such an amazing time, amazing opportunity, sharing the mic with you. It's been a pleasure coming in, seeing the shirts. I stayed I stayed the same the entire time. Consistency is key, right?
I try to wear a different one each time.
Different one each time, so it was good. But no, it was definitely a pleasure. I learned a lot from you, from our guests, and it was always just nice hearing your perspective from an older generation to a younger. And now to the guests, I really appreciate to those of you out there, I really appreciate you tuning in. It was a bit difficult at the start, but I think I've warmed up to the idea of
Absolutely.
chatting with all of you, talking to all of you, and I appreciate all of your feedback. And yeah, that will be it for me. Thank you again, Warren. Thanks for those people out there. If you would like to contact us, we're at goodmenproject@hca.org.au. Or if you'd like to visit our website for more information, that's www.hca.org.au. Thanks again one last time. We'll see you. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is for information and educational purposes. The views expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own views and do not constitute professional advice. Listeners should consult professionals for specific advice tailored to their needs. We make no representation or warranties concerning the accuracy, completeness, or applicability of the information in the podcast.